Welcome to Minghui Radio's Falun Gong News, direct from China and around the world. Topics include news about the persecution of Falun Gong in China, local events, and special items of interest. Now for this week's stories.
USA. The Congressional Executive Commission on China, the CECC, issued a statement on July 21st condemning the Chinese Communist Party's 27-year persecution of Falun Gong. Representative Chris Smith, co-chair of the CECC, stated that those responsible should know that they will face justice. The statement said in part, the systemic persecution of this peaceful faith community is one of the CCP's egregious atrocities, from torture to forced organ harvesting to transnational repression. Those responsible have escaped accountability, and too many practitioners remain imprisoned. Their freedom and justice should be a priority for the U.S. and all freedom-loving countries. Representative Chris Smith also made the following statement on his official website, quote, "In spite of immense pressure and intimidation from a powerful authoritarian regime, the resilient spirit of the Falun Gong has not been broken." The persecution of the Falun Gong is not a closed chapter of history. It is an ongoing crime, and those responsible should know that they will face justice. The United States must press for the release of every detained practitioner and sanction the CCP officials responsible for the atrocities committed against the Falun Gong. It concluded.
Austria. The Austrian Falun Dafa Association submitted a petition containing over 12,000 signatures to the International Law Office of the Austrian Ministry of Foreign Affairs on July 16th. The petition urges the Austrian government to openly condemn the CCP's persecution of Falun Dafa and involuntary organ harvesting, to legislate a ban on organ tourism to China, and to implement the European Parliament resolutions passed in December 2013, May 2022, and December of 2024 regarding the CCP's forced organ harvesting. In May of this year, the Austrian National Council unanimously passed an amendment to the Organ Transplantation Act, banning organ tourism companies and platforms from advertising or profiting from the sale of vital organs. This June, a draft amendment to the Criminal Code was officially taken under review.
USA. A special screening of the documentary Unbroken was held at the U.S. Capitol on July 22nd. It was followed by a panel discussion that included Member of Congress Representative Marlin Stutzman, investigative reporter and executive producer of the film Steve Lance, and featured artists from the Shenyang Performing Arts Group. Representative Stutzman praised the film in his opening remarks, saying that it clearly conveys the CCP's brutal persecution of believers and reminds American society of the need to cherish freedom and bravely defend freedom of religion and speech. He pointed out that the CCP has infiltrated the U.S., including through social media and educational institutions, using its propaganda and ideology to influence the American people. He continued, "I would have loved it if all 535 members of Congress came to see this documentary today. This kind of direct and compelling evidence is exactly what we desperately need when formulating policies in Congress."
South Australia. Falun Gong practitioners held a rally opposing the CCP's persecution in front of the State Parliament House on July 17th and a candlelight vigil at Victoria Square on July 20th. Local officials attended the rally and condemned the persecution and transnational repression. Many people signed a petition that calls for an end to the human rights abuses. Former independent member of the South Australian House of Assembly, Tammy Franks, addressed the rally. She mentioned the CCP's transnational repression, including the bomb threats to the Australian Prime Minister that targeted Shenyang. Ms. Franks said, It's outrageous that there were bomb threats made against the Prime Minister. She urged the public to stand firm and in solidarity against such oppression.
Sri Lanka. Falun Gong practitioners gathered at the Sahas Uyana theme park in Kandy City on July 20th to raise awareness of the CCP's persecution. This is the fourth year in a row that practitioners have held this event. They set up an information display with facts about the human rights crimes in China and collected signatures on a petition to end the persecution. Practitioners also introduced the practice by demonstrating the exercises and displaying the main book of the practice, Zhuan Falun, in the Sinhalese, Tamil, and English languages.
The United States. The Florida Falun Dafa Cultivation Experience Sharing Conference was held at Wyndham Garden in downtown Orlando on July 18th. 16 practitioners spoke about how they removed human attachments and improved their character through diligently practicing Falun Dafa. One young practitioner's paper focused on overcoming fatigue, eliminating her addiction to her mobile phone, and improving her character. She discovered that her addiction to watching short videos and using her mobile phone was unwittingly depleting her righteous thoughts and fostering her attachment to comfort. Even when she watched what might be considered positive content, it formed attachments, so she made a conscious effort to restrain herself and keep her main consciousness clear. Practitioners also shared examples of telling people about the persecution, working together as one body, and looking within to find their shortcomings.
Romania. Awareness-raising activities were held in the old city center of Brasov on June 27th and July 4th. Falun Dafa practitioners have been informing the public about the ongoing persecution of the practice by the communist regime every Saturday for 27 years. They also introduced people to the ancient spiritual discipline of Falun Dafa and its core principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. An economist from Bucharest named Otilia expressed regret that international media outlets have not paid enough attention to China's severe human rights crisis. She urged practitioners to continue getting the word out, even while media coverage is limited.
Singapore. Falun Dafa practitioners gathered on July 19th at the Marina Barrage Marina and at the Hong Lim Park on July 21st to hold events commemorating the 30th anniversary of Master Lee's 1996 Singapore lecture and the inauguration ceremony of the Singapore Falun Dafa Association. The association was formally established on July 28, 1996, as a legally registered group in Singapore. It holds the distinction of being the first Falun Dafa association outside of China.
USA. A grand march against the persecution and a group exercise session were held by Falun Dafa practitioners in California's San Francisco Bay Area on July 18th. They called for an end to severe human rights abuses in China. The colorful and solemn march attracted many spectators. Many took photos and videos. Several pro-democracy activists from the Chinese Democracy and Human Rights Alliance attended the event to condemn the CCP's suppression of human rights and religions. Li Hafeng from the Chinese Democracy and Human Rights Alliance joined the march in support. He said that Chinese people will one day thank Falun Gong. Deputy Director of Activities for the San Francisco chapter of the Democracy Party of China, Li Shaolin, strongly urged all forces of justice, regardless of organization, group, or ethnicity, to unite and support one another with these kinds of events. He believes that unity of the people is the weapon that dictatorships fear most.
France. Falun Dafa practitioners recently visited several coastal cities in southern France to introduce the practice and expose its persecution. The events kicked off in Antibes on July 16th, then proceeded to Nice, Marseille, and Cannes. It ended in the city of Toulon on July 21st. The practitioners demonstrated the exercises, distributed flyers, and collected signatures on a petition calling for an end to the CCP's persecution.
Spain. A peaceful opposition rally was held in front of the Chinese embassy in Madrid on July 17. At the event, Falun Gong practitioners described how the CCP's 27-year-long persecution of Falun Gong reaches beyond its national borders. Chinese embassies and consulates continue to target those overseas who persist in their faith by illegally monitoring or collecting personal information about overseas practitioners. This information is used to threaten, harass, and intimidate practitioners' parents and relatives in China. Many passers-by signed a petition opposing the crimes.
Taiwan. On July 15th, a Falun Dafa rally and candlelight vigil was held at the Taipei City Government Civic Plaza. On this summer night, hundreds of candles slowly flickered as Falun Gong practitioners from northern Taiwan solemnly mourned the passing of their fellow practitioners from mainland China, who died for upholding their faith. Events such as this took place in communities all over the free world. Politicians, medical experts, lawyers, and scholars spoke in turn at the event, condemning the CCP's crimes against humanity. They called for legislation to combat the cross-border repression, stop the persecution, and safeguard human rights and freedom.
Ireland. A march and rally against the persecution was held by Falun Dafa practitioners in the city of Dublin on July 18. Many people stopped to watch them demonstrate the exercises, talk with practitioners, and sign a petition to help end the persecution. Among them was an Irish woman named Beverly. She signed the petition and said that not only Falun Dafa practitioners were hurt, but the whole society has been harmed by the persecution. She also urged people to not turn a blind eye to the persecution and specifically live organ harvesting of practitioners, and to speak out against it. Beverly encouraged practitioners to keep fighting and said, "The people participating in the persecution are being watched by God, and they will face consequences. But for those of us who stand up and oppose the persecution, God follows and strengthens us."
The following are selected cases of persecution of Falun Gong practitioners in China. A 58-year-old woman in Heilongjiang province died on June 19, 2026, after suffering years of persecution for her faith in Falun Gong. Ms. Ren Yuhong took up Falun Gong in 1996, and after the Chinese Communist Party launched a nationwide campaign against the practice, she held firm to her faith and was repeatedly targeted. Ms. Ren's employer demoted her shortly after the persecution began. Unable to cope, her husband divorced her. She then struggled to raise her son alone. In 2003, police officers, aided by her company's security office, took her to a brainwashing center where she was beaten by guards, verbally abused, and deprived of sleep. Later, in 2018, on her last day at work before retirement, police officers arrested her. She was sentenced to 4 years, and her employer also canceled her pension. In prison, she was tortured and became ill. She struggled to breathe and fell into a coma on multiple occasions. After she was released in 2022, she still faced frequent harassment by the police until her death.
A 65-year-old woman in Jeju City, Yunnan Province, was arrested on April 10, 2026, while on a train back home from a family vacation. The arresting officers said they received an order to closely monitor her because she was a Falun Gong practitioner. Ms. Yang Jinwei was put in a detention center located in the prefectural capital near her hometown. Ms. Yang's family was notified on May 3rd that she had just died. They rushed to the detention center and was told that Ms. Yang had a heart attack and the resuscitation was unsuccessful. The family asked to see the surveillance videos. In the footage shown to them, Ms. Yang was seen washing her clothes when she suddenly collapsed. The family has requested an autopsy, but it was unknown if the detention center has agreed to it. Other details of the case also remain to be investigated. Prior to her latest persecution episode, Ms. Yang was repeatedly targeted for upholding her faith.
An 85-year-old woman in Sichuan province was admitted to prison in May to serve a 3-year term for her faith in Falun Gong. This is the third time Ms. Tong has been sentenced for practicing Falun Gong. She was arrested in 2000 for distributing Falun Gong flyers and was later sentenced to 4 years. After her sentence ended, the police held her at a brainwashing center for a month. Ms. Tong was arrested again in 2014 while hosting a birthday party at her home and later sentenced to 2.5 years. Ms. Tong's family was also targeted for not renouncing Falun Gong. Her husband, their oldest son, and son-in-law all died as a result of the persecution. Her grandson, who did not practice Falun Gong, grew up in fear, witnessing the repeated arrests, harassment, and detention of his family. Under severe and constant mental distress, he died when he was only 21 years old.
Domestic Security Office personnel in Jilin Province claimed they were taking an 87-year-old local woman for a physical exam last month. Instead, they took her to the local women's prison to serve a term for practicing Falun Gong. Ms. Wang Jinzi was previously arrested 6 years ago after being reported for distributing Falun Gong informational materials. She was soon released on bail, but was frequently harassed by the police. They pressured her daughter to keep a close eye on her. The daughter was so terrified that she then developed a medical condition. It is unclear when Ms. Wan was indicted, tried, or sentenced. Neither she nor her family have been notified of her exact prison sentence. When she asked the police for a copy of her verdict in 2025, she was fined 5,000 yuan.
Events in South Korea raise awareness of the CCP's crimes. Practitioners of Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, demonstrated the exercises and held a rally in March in Seoul Plaza on July 20th, the 27-year anniversary of the start of the persecution of the practice. Despite the rain, practitioners gathered to call for an end to the CCP's oppression. Events like this one took place in communities all over the free world on the same date. Speakers from the South Korean cultural community voiced their support, deeply moved after learning the facts about the torture and forced organ harvesting perpetrated by the CCP. Residents and tourists called for an end to the suppression. Despite the incessant rain, practitioners gathered on the grassy plaza in front of Seoul City Hall in the morning to do the exercises. The fluid movements and peaceful atmosphere attracted many tourists to stop and watch, and many recorded the event on their phones. After the exercises, the rally was begun with a brief review of the persecution, a statement from the Korean Falun Dafa Association, speeches by guests, and a memorial ceremony for those who have died. Vice President of the Falun Dafa Association of Korea, Dr. Jung Kai-tae, read a statement describing how the CCP has been carrying out transnational repression against Falun Dafa in an effort to extend its suppression overseas. The CCP has been attempting to expand its influence in South Korean society through the United Front movement, including activities within the South Korean government, local governments, South Korea-China friendship groups, and using the media. In his statement, Dr. Jung Kai-tae also mentioned the CCP's long-standing interference with Shenyang performing arts in South Korea. He called on the South Korean government to strongly resist unreasonable pressure from foreign governments and to safeguard cultural sovereignty and the rule of law. Chief programmer and director of the Seoul Larkspur International Film Festival, Hyo-eun Do, spoke at the rally. He said that because of its core values of justice, freedom, and human rights, the festival selected State Organs, a documentary that exposes the CCP's crimes of forced organ harvesting, as the festival's opening film last year. He said, "Remaining silent in the face of human rights abuses is tantamount to encouraging persecution. Condemning the CCP's human rights abuses is not about opposing the Chinese people. Rather, it is about opposing the violence of a totalitarian state that oppresses humanity." During the memorial portion of the rally, portraits of Falun Gong practitioners whose lives were lost to the persecution were displayed on the stage. A practitioner recited a eulogy and said, "Your courage in sacrificing your lives for the truth moves the world. Your effort in revealing the truth of the persecution to the public fills the world with justice." After the rally, practitioners marched through the center of Seoul. Led by the Tianguo marching band, the procession featured practitioners demonstrating the exercises, banners that read Falun Dafa and Truthfulness, Compassion, Forbearance, a large replica of the book Juan Falun, a waist drum team, and banners with messages that exposed the CCP's persecution of Falun Dafa and the crimes of forced organ harvesting. After watching the march, many people accepted flyers from practitioners and asked for more information. One local resident said, "I used to have a misunderstanding about Falun Gong, but after watching today's parade, I understand who the perpetrators are and who the victims are."
Call for action in Washington, D.C. against the persecution of Falun Gong. Nearly 2,000 practitioners and supporters from across the U.S. gathered in the nation's capital to raise awareness of the ongoing persecution of Falun Gong by the Chinese Communist Party. A rally took place in front of the Lincoln Memorial on July 23rd, followed by a grand march and memorial vigil to expose the 27-year-long persecution and encourage the international community to put a stop to it. At the rally, a U.S. congressman, a think tank expert, human rights advocates, and a former NBA star gave powerful speeches that urged U.S. legislators to take decisive action to hold those involved in the persecution accountable. House Representative Pat Ryan gave a speech at the rally and said that he was proud to represent the global headquarters of Falun Gong at Dragon Springs, located in the Hudson Valley District. The group's steadfast dedication to its values, arts, and history is a source of great pride and inspiration for their district. He said your adherence to the values of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance lights a beacon of hope in everyone's heart, especially during these turbulent times. The Falun Gong Protection Act, a legislation that co-leads, passed the House in May 2025. Representative Ryan said, "By passing this bill, we are sending a clear and unequivocal message to the CCP. Their severe violations against Falun Gong will absolutely not be tolerated. We must continue to stand united and hold traffickers accountable for their heinous crimes." He vowed to continue to speak out against restrictions on human rights, the persecution of religious groups, and in particular any threats targeting the Falun Gong community. Former NBA star and prominent international human rights activist Enes Kanter Freedom spoke at the rally. He said, "While we are comfortably playing basketball in this country, on the other side of the world, people are losing their loved ones, losing their lives, and losing their homes." He told Falun Gong practitioners, "We are in Washington, D.C. There are lots of lawmakers in the city. I have one message to all the lawmakers, that we are tired of hearing condemnations. We don't want to hear condemnation anymore. We want you to take concrete action against the Chinese Communist Party. Because while you are condemning all the atrocities happening over there, thousands of innocent people, maybe millions of innocent people, are losing their loved ones. So we're going to do whatever we can to push our lawmakers to take concrete action against those evil regimes like the CCP." In conclusion, he stated, "My last message to all the world leaders is that if all these world leaders actually listen and follow these pure messages of Falun Dafa, you won't have any of these wars right now. It is all about compassion. It is all about truthfulness. And it is all about standing for what is right." Karina Lipsman, the director of the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation, spoke at the rally and mentioned that last year the House of Representatives unanimously passed H.R. 1540, the Falun Gong Protection Act. Most recently, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee advanced S4009, the Falun Gong and the Victims of Forced Organ Harvesting Protection Act. Ms. Lipsman said, "These bipartisan legislation efforts reflect a shared commitment to confronting the credible reports of severe human rights abuses and to stand with victims of religious persecution. As these measures continue through legislative process, they represent an important opportunity for the United States to reaffirm that crimes against dignity cannot be ignored."
Thank you for listening to the Minghui Radio Podcast. For more information, including news about the persecution of Falun Gong practitioners in China and experience sharing stories by practitioners around the world, please visit our website at en.minghui.org.